So what am I saying here? This is actually, what do we see in the Lord's crucifixion? Because it's the same city. Have you noticed that it's the same city? The same city as Sodom, the same city as Egypt. Is Jerusalem is also the same city, because it's people. The attitude of those people, they have rejected the Lord. That's why they have rejected the two witnesses. They have rejected the two witnesses. The two witnesses getting killed. That's why in from the Mount of Olives to the cross. Denise, you got a comment?
Yes, I just want to make a point that they have not necessarily rejected God, but they have rejected the God that Jesus revealed. I mean, they may still believe in
Yes.
God, but they believe in a God that is actually similar to the gods of Egypt and the false God.
The Lord of the earth.
Yeah, the Lord.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Very, very good point. Because they will believe in what they will call God, but it's the God of the earth. It's not the God of heaven and earth. That's right. That's right. They still believe that. Uh, Now, then those from the peoples, tribes, tongues, and nations will see the dead bodies 3.5 days and not allow their dead bodies to be put into graves. And you say, how can that be? I mean, remember, we're talking about people witnessing, okay? Olive fields, a garden of olive trees. We're not talking about one, two people. But, friends, with the coronavirus, they're having a struggle in Italy and it's having a struggle in Spain. And it's so sad, that my daughter actually told me the other day. I was so glad that we actually were able to be there at mom's funeral, because there's people now in Spain that are actually just having an image on Zoom of the loved ones at a distance. They can't even get close. So, and that is now, and the system is not collapsing yet from that point of view. So imagine when this happens, okay? But what I'm saying is, yes, Philadelphia might go through and might be mourn for a while, but it's not that while is not that long, because notice this: Philadelphia not dying as such. Yeah, Denise, you got a comment?
I have a question. When you made the parallel between these two witnesses and Moses and Elijah, and how
Yeah,
Moses correlates with Smyrna and Elijah with Philadelphia, and we
yeah,
know that it wasn't God who killed Moses, but Satan claimed his body.
yes,
Uh,
yes.
is that the same thing happening here? Is Satan claiming power over these people, even though, and we know that Jesus, Michael, when disputing with over the body of Moses, resurrected Moses, right? So
Yes.
the same thing happening here, do you think?
Or it could be in the same similar thing. We actually don't know in the book of Jude how many days. We know that in Deuteronomy it doesn't show us where the tomb of Moses was, so there was not a record. And I don't know if it was 3.5 days that after that Moses was resurrected. We don't have the figure of 3.5 days in the book of Jude, but it could actually be. I mean, it is very interesting. It's 3.5 days. Jesus was also resurrected on
But
the third day.
but the point I'm trying to make is the reason why Satan claimed the life of Moses was because Moses did not. What does it say in Deuteronomy? Where he did not glorify the name of God by striking the rock, and so
Ah,
Satan
yes, because of his
claimed,
sin.
right? So I'm asking
Hmm.
the same. Could it be that these people go through that same experience where they lose it like Moses did, but Jesus still resurrected them, even though Moses claimed their life?
Hmm. It could
I don't know.
it could be. I don't know. It could actually be. Do you know the story of Jerome? Jerome, in one of the reformers and in the Middle Ages, he was put in prison and tortured and hunger and everything else. And the church at that historical time, which will be Thyatira, the church of Jezebel, forced Jerome to repent from his beliefs of salvation by faith. And Jerome at some point he actually broke down, and he said, "Yes, I will sign whatever I need to sign." And then they wanted to make a spectacle of him, so they they gave him some time because they wanted to sort of make it a big issue how Jerome has actually repented of their heretical beliefs. And in that period of time was actually when Jerome came to his senses and said, what am I doing? So then when he was set up before the whole press conference, if you will, of the time, because they wanted to make it so public and so loud, Jerome said, I repent of what I did, that I deny my Lord, just for a moment, in a moment of weakness. But I am trusting in his mercy. And in regards to this document in front of me, I will not sign it. So, but the thing is that that's also part of the salvation by faith. It is not is the perfection, the perfection of his perfect sacrifice, if you will. Notice what happens here. Then those from the people, this is verse 9, tribes, tongues, and nations will see the dead bodies 3.5 days and not allow their dead bodies to be put into graves. And those who dwell on the earth will rejoice over them. Okay, there you are. There you got the earth dwellers again. Those that dwell on the earth will rejoice over them, make merry, and send gifts to one another, because those two prophets tormented those who dwell on the earth, the earth dwellers that dwell in all the earth. So you can actually see very clearly those summary chapters now, Revelation 12, 13, and 14, how they are actually playing out there. Now, after the 3.5 days, the breath of life from God entered them, and they stood on their feet, and great fear fell on those who saw them. Now, again, with the analogy of the Lego puzzle that makes a huge Titanic, you can get the pieces, and you can actually work out here the burning of Bibles in Paris in 1890 in 1798, and the Old and New Testament being burned on the streets and things like that. Yes, no question about that. But you'll have to ignore many verses to come up with that conclusion. You have to not use the rest of all those verses that we're just dealing with, and specifically the very next one. The very next one. Think about it. Think about it from the point of view of the French Revolution, the burning of Bibles, the Old and the New Testament, as if as the two witnesses and was understood. The Old and the New Testament, the burning of Bibles in Paris during the French Revolution, and think about it now in the context of the very next verse, which is verse 12. And they heard a loud voice from heaven saying to them, "Come up here." And they ascended to heaven in a cloud, and their enemies saw them. Hold on a second. If this actually French Revolution burning of Bibles, the very next verse is that these two witnesses are taken up in a cloud to heaven. What's this? And the heaven could be the sky too, okay? But it's just they're taken up. They're taken up, and I want you to notice this. If that happened in the French Revolution, we are in a big trouble. If that happened because if the witnessing has taken up to heaven, there's no more witnessing, and that cannot be. So I'm not saying, I'm not negating, and I'm actually emphasizing the fact that there's multiple applications that they're all valid, but an application has to ignore many other verses in order to apply it that way. And the fulfillment is when you start getting all the verses and they build a huge puzzle. Denise, you got, yeah, go ahead.
That be a reference to the second coming? The cloud becomes the cloud.
I, I believe it's a reference to the second coming. I believe there's a reference in the second coming. And I'm just going to mention something here. Uh, the Lord will not take us from persecution. There's many Christians that said, persecution will come and the Lord will take us up in a rapture in the persecution. That is not biblical whatsoever. The Lord will take us in the persecution. It will be with us in the middle of the fire of persecution and so on. There's no question about that. There is very evident in the history of the Bible, in the history of the New Testament, in the actual history of Christianity, that the Lord does not take us from persecution. And there's different levels and degrees of persecution. But I'm going to tell you one thing.